Morning guys, 2B. So, to be or not to be, there's a little bit of awful humour to get you through the rest of this video. So, following the market research, a concept has been considered by designers as outlined on page 4 of the resource booklet. So let's have a quick look at that. Okay, what's the concept? So this is our lovely concept for the trolley. It's basically a shopping trolley. Okay. And what's it asking us to do? Use sketches and notes. Okay, so if you're doing this online, guys, you might need to take, if you do any sketches, you need to send me an email of the sketches, basically. So use sketches and notes to outline suitable methods of manufacture and assembly. So it's all about how would you manufacture and assemble it for the features of the concept design that has already been produced in figures 4 to 7. Okay, what's 4 to 7? 4, 5... 6, oh, little tarpaulin lid, and 7, a pivot at the back. So basically you've got to make this. Okay, what else is it going to ask? In response, you must provide annotations or technical informations. So about, so you must mention materials, manufacturing, processes step by step, finishes, standard components that you'd use, nuts, bolts, all those kind of things. Okay, so it's basically a production plan of how you'd make each part step by step. And then finally, explain how the methods you have outlined meet the key attributes. Oh, okay. So that's going to be a specification identified by the festival operators on page 3. So on top of doing a production plan, how to make it, we've also got to meet these spec points. What are the spec points? So let's have a quick look here. So the spec points say, here, ease of maintenance and cleaning. So on top of it, you've got to make sure it's maintenance and cleaning free. So that'll be talking about the materials you make, so it can be wipe clean. Resistant to the elements, so obviously it's got to be waterproof at the end of it. Lightweight to enable ease of loading onto vehicles. Well, that's going to be the materials it's made of. Okay. An interlocking, stackable or compact footprint when in trolley stations. Let's have a look. So maintenance and cleaning. So at the end of it, we've got to make sure this is all wiped down. A ball basically it can be cleaned, hosed down, or whatever. So that's going to be to do with the finish. Interlockable, it's already designed to be interlockable, so that bit licks up so another one can fit in. So your answer's already in there. What else did you have to do? Lightweight to enable ease of loading onto vehicles. That's going to be the materials that you make it out of. Has it told you what materials you have to make? So this bit's out of mild steel tubular, and this is made out of marine ply. So you haven't really got much choice. You've got to use those two. Okay, and so we've got to make it resistant to the elements. So the way to do this, guys, is, let me just whiz back to the other one. If it was me, I would do a table. Well, first of all, I'd break down and see which parts we've got to make. You've got to make these outside bits. Okay, you've got to make the tarpaulin lid, and then you've got to make this mild tubular frame. All right, so what I would do is break it down to all the parts. So I'd have a little part A, mild tubular shield, and I would have quick table processes, the materials I'm using, manufacturing elements, finishes, and any standard components to use. Okay, so all I'd be looking at, so if it was me, how I would make these. So I'm guessing, does it give you how many are needed? Don't think it does. But I would go for a batch production or more anyway. So I'd be thinking CNC routers, stuff like that. Okay, let's get to the mild tubular frame. So I'd be thinking straight away, first job is to cut all your hollow ends to length. Dead simple. Cut them to length. What would I use? Common brace, mechanical hacksaw, something along those lines. Could be an angle grinder. Cut them to the length you want. I would then have a jig to hold them in place. You know, jig to hold 4 sections in place. Now I wouldn't put weld. Now if this is where you got to get your technical detail in. So where it says manufacturing principles. So if I just put weld together, or process, weld all joints together. Now if you just put weld, I'd put weld joints together. But in the manufacturing point of it, I'd be putting MIG weld, brazing, whichever way that you want to do it. Okay, and I'd say right, because it's steel, it's quite easy. You can braze, MIG, TIG, all those different joints. Okay, So I would weld all those, but making sure you mention MIG and TIG. Now it says that these were hollow. So what you want to be doing is where these are joining is if you've got an open section of tubing, I'd be thinking straight away, right, if it's open, water's going to get in. So I would either cut and weld some plates on it. So imagine you'd left this bit open here. You could cut a small bit of steel plate that could be welded on to seal it up so no liquid's going to get in, okay, or moisture from the air. The other way of doing it is obviously to cut these at perfect angles, okay, so that they perfectly get welded and there's no hole. Now it's up to you. Okay, that to me would take a lot longer depending on the cost, depending on the weight. I'd just put some plates on the end. Okay, now if it had been me, I'd have designed this, welded this end section as a jig, this together, and then welded these bits together. That's the kind of thing they're going to be looking for. Now, the one thing you need to do there is be thinking, right, how would you protect that from the elements? Well, I would zinc coat it, cover it in zinc. You could paint it. You could do whatever you wanted to metal, but to make sure it's completely covered. You could galvanize it. But as long as you've got a thing that's saying you've covered that, and basically it's protected from the elements, because you have to hit this one here, resistance. And you could also say that's to do with ease and maintenance and cleaning. All right. Next one, panels. How would I make these panels? Well, if it's a large amount or even a batch amount, I'd CNC route them. Okay, so these would be all CNC routed. Okay, where's the worst part of marine ply? Is wherever you've cut it. So wherever you've cut ply is normally where moisture is going to get in. So I'd put some sealant, some varnish or something along the edge where the sealant's going to go in. Okay, now I'd be thinking about, right, I've cut these out in CNC router. Dead simple. How am I going to attach these three to that? Okay, well, if it was me, I'd drill some holes, countersink them, and I'd probably rivet them in, or use a nut and bolt, small M3 nuts. Don't have to be M3, don't know the sizes, but I'd use some nuts to put them together so it can be taken apart. Although sustainability is not in, but you can just rivet them. They can also be drilled out if you want. Okay, so that'd be the next bit. CNC part, rivet these onto the sides. Okay, it wants how the tarpaulin's made, and it wants how its back end. So this back end would be CNC routed, and obviously there'd be some sort of hinge. If you don't know your different hinges, I'd use a piano hinge, they're the really long ones, is the name of them. But if you mention some sort of hinge, you wouldn't necessarily use a barrel hinge, but I'd say a gate hinge / piano hinge would be put along there. How would you attach it into the wood? Probably screwed in. How would I attach it into the steel? Probably riveting. Okay. Tarpaulin. Now, the weakest ones you all know is my textile. So basically, but tarpaulin is just plastic stitched together. So I'm guessing this would simply be cut out into a net shape, which would be a net, sewn together, double stitched for toughness or strength, and then put on the top. Okay. So all this question's asking for, and you will have one in the exam, that basically is looking that you understand how things are made together. When we started doing section 7, I said you have to look around everything that's made when you walk around your life and be thinking, how's that made? How's that made? If you don't know how it's made, you need to go away and find out. Because basically the exam's all about how would you put something together. Okay? But the exam technique part of it is to make sure you've read these. So if you want the full 16 marks, you need the detail, but somewhere in there you need to link it to the key attributes. Now the thing with this is, the exam technique, why we always say read the question, is there'll be a question like this just on there. Now it might not say key attributes on your exam, it might just say, a lot of them just say, production plan, how would you make this? Okay, so if you hadn't read that second part, you'd have lost a lot of money. A lot of points. So you have to be absolutely spot on with how you say you're going to make it. And if you're absolutely spot on, you can do it in tables, you can do it any way you want. Personally, I like things in nice, neat tables, so I draw a quick table, part, this is how it's made. Table, part, assembly, this is how you assembly. Finish, putting it in. Have you mentioned the standardized components? Rivets, bolts, nuts, all those kind of things. Okay, that's how you do the question, guys. Give it a go. Any questions, email me across.